Hello and welcome to Flourishing Machines. Today I'm going to be talking about the wedge. Uh, so the general idea here is that we're developing a toolbox of conceptual abilities. And so roughly you'll be encountering real world challenges and you'll be able to reach into this conceptual toolbox and pull out something that you're now familiar with, a tool that will help you meet your goals. Today we're going to learn how to identify wedges, identify opportunities for wedges, and employ effective wedges. Here's an overview of how the wedge works. So what's crucial about it is that um, the input force is directed in one direction, but then the wedge changes the direction of the output force. So acting in one direction has a benefit in a different direction. And if that's the general idea behind the wedge, we can see all the sciencey stuff that you might care to know, right? So some of the advantages of using a wedge are that you can get through some sticking points. And so if you've kind of hit a roadblock with your current ability, you can get through a sticking point by devoting energy in another direction. And so when you do that, I guess two things happen, right? So one of them is that your ability to do the thing that you were initially doing, we'll call that action A, kind of couples with your ability to do this other thing, we'll call it action B, and then you can get this synergistic effect. So if you couldn't do a particular kind of lift previously, even though you were very strong, maybe it was because you were not flexible enough to get into the right position or hold the right position. Then you work on your flexibility, and all of a sudden you're able to lift greater weights than you could previously. And the third thing is maybe for a psychological change of pace, right? So if you're just grinding away and grinding away at the same sort of thing, you can change your mindset and your attitude by focusing on another task. When I get to the wheel and axle, I'll talk about the power of being able to kind of move back and forth quickly. Well, maybe not quickly, but agilely, right? So in response to stressors and things like that. So if is it a day where you should go hard, or is it a day where you should back off a bit and focus on recovery? Say in workouts. Is it a day where you should focus on deep research, or is it a day where you should focus on grading papers and other less deep, more shallow kind of work? Again, we'll talk about that when we come to the wheel and axle. But helping you get through sticking points, psychological change of pace, and this is accomplished through synergistic, like compounding of forces. So the guide to use, the idea is that we're going to change the direction of our force. And so we need at least two characteristics, right? So we need the choice-worthy end, and that is, as usual, it's the thing that you have identified as a goal that is worthy of your time and energy. And then we need a change of direction, right? So, I mean, here's the demonstration again, right? So if your goal is to, I don't know, split a log of wood, and you can't just grab it and rip it in half, then kind of employ this force down toward the middle, and that will eventually help facilitate your goal. So that's what it is in the conceptual sense. So we're going to have the choice-worthy end and a change of direction. So here are three examples. The first one is retirement, right? So suppose that you want to put away money for retirement, but you're not putting enough away. So we get this choice-worthy end, and that is putting away more money. And this is derived from so this is not a thought experiment out of nowhere. A lot of Fortune 500 companies have done this, where they take a look at actual reports of how much money people are putting away and whether they want to put away more money, and we find out that many people actually want to be putting away more money for retirement, and they're not. So they have this choice-worthy end. And so a couple options here are the change of direction is the wedge, right? So one possibility is that you cede control for more control. What that means is because you want the money because it's going to give you control in the future, one of the ways that you can do this is, one of the ways that companies do this is they introduce an opt-out as opposed to an opt-in strategy. So the company will say, hey, we're going to start putting away 10% more money from your paycheck into savings. And if you don't like that, that's totally fine. Just opt out. As opposed to the way things normally work, which is just put away as much money as you want, or we have this base rate, blah, 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 right? And so what we find out is that the vast majority of people who are put into such an opt-out program stick with it, and they report that they're happier. So they give up control in order to be happier. Maybe another way to do this in the real world is if you say there's a particular sort of appointment you don't like going to, whether it's a dentist or a doctor's appointment or something like that, you can cede control for more control. So what you really want is to go, but you don't like to set up the appointment. You don't like going through the hassle, and so you ask someone else to do it for you. Maybe you could even trade scheduling of appointments. So I'll schedule your dentist appointment if you schedule my doctor's appointment, something like that. Weight loss. So sometimes people want to lose weight simply to lose weight, but that's typically not the reason that they really want to lose weight. Maybe they want it for health, or maybe they want it to look better. And so depending upon what your choice-worthy end is, so why is it that you want to lose weight? One of the wedges might be that you actually gain muscle instead. So there are a couple articles here that look at those overweight or obese adults, and they compare doing cardio only, doing weight training only, or a mixed modality. And what we find is that the mixed mode, where people are doing some weight training and also some sort of cardio, tends to have some of the best results in terms of most of the biomarkers. So their lean body mass will increase, their body fat will decrease, they'll gain strength, so they won't lose much by way of bone density as they age. That's a particular problem for women. As they age, and so we might find that if the goal is, oh, I want to lose weight, gaining muscle might actually be the best thing for you. It's clearly a wedge because it's a change in the direction of force. And then finally, fail journaling. So Angela Duckworth deals with this issue, this characteristic that she calls grit. And so a look at grit shows us a couple interesting factors. So grit, you can take a little test and see what your grit score is. And so I'm sure you can look on the internet and find that. And so grit is correlated with some really fascinating stuff. Of course, correlation doesn't mean causation, but it is correlated in this fascinating way with people's performances. So do they want to go to grad school, for instance? Are they, let's see, are they conscientious? So grit is positively correlated with conscientiousness. Are they neurotic? Grit is negatively, which means the more grit you have, the less neurotic you're likely to be. Moderately positively correlated with agreeableness and extroversion and openness to experiences. But it's really that one, that conscientiousness and neuroticism, right? So pretty high marks there. And the idea is that people who have grit, or the greater amount of grit that you have, perhaps, the more able you are to kind of reason through things and persevere when things get difficult. Okay, and so one of the choice-worthy ends that many of us have, it's a very general choice-worthy end, is just to succeed, right? So when we set our goals, we want to be able to succeed at them. And we're often taught to, think about all think about all you've overcome. Think about what a badass you are. Think about all this stuff, right? So positive mindset, thinking about those things. But what we find out when we dig into some of the data is that focusing on our failures might actually make us feel better about our failures, and be more likely to succeed in the future. And so it's a wedge because the goal is to succeed, but rather than focusing on how you can succeed in the future, think about how your failures have arisen. Think about the things that you could control in the process of your failures, and then think about implementing that into the plan moving forward. All right, so those are three general examples of the wedge. And then again, as we look over YouGov's data on New Year's resolutions, we see all these common, well, they're the most common. So any of the goals that were listed that at least 10% of people reported, and that's what that number represents, the percentage of people who reported having a New Year's resolution like this for 2021, for instance. And so if the goal is more exercise or improving my fitness or losing weight, we've already seen how the wedge might be able to help in those cases. Saving more money, we've already seen that. Just tell someone to do it for you. Notice that this is not always going to work, right? So just because we have a wedge that we can use, it doesn't mean it will be the best. Now, for improving your fitness, a wedge might be a really effective method of doing that. So combine some kind of cardio and strength training. Improving your diet, Pursuing career ambition. So it really depends upon the nature of what these are. So improving your diet, you could use a fail journal. In fact, a fail journal could work for a lot of these, right? So improving your diet or pursuing a career ambition. Maybe if you want to get better at one aspect of your job, you actually need to improve your skills in another area. So if you'd like to, I don't know, move up in get a promotion, maybe what you need to do is invest time in other skills like reading or writing skills, or maybe take I don't know, people like these leadership classes. So you may have to invest time elsewhere in order to get the payoff moving forward, right? So it's that synergistic idea. Um, if you're not very good at speaking, maybe writing will help you, right? So doing a lot of prep time, writing will help you better put your thoughts into words, and then you'll be able to say them better. Taking up a new hobby, spending less time on social media, giving up smoking. So this is one case where having a negative, right? So decreasing, right? So spend less time or give up smoking. This is actually a case where failed journaling might be relevant, or not just relevant, but where the wedge might be really effective, right? So if we focus on why is it that I'm spending so much time on social media? Or when are the times when I'm smoking? What are the particular stresses that are going on? If you can identify those sorts of things in a failed journal, then you can come up with a plan to guard against them in the future. Okay, and so that then is the general idea behind the wedge, and those are several examples for you.